Well, hey there, fellow sojourners, and welcome back to another edition of Appropriate in the Culture. On today's episode, I'm taking a task for my stance on puppies. I'm Pastor Shane. I'll be giving the rebuttal today as we appropriate some culture. So last week we talked about the Christie Gnome fiasco, in which her ghostwriter included in her upcoming book an account in which she put down her dog after it had killed her neighbor's chickens. That created a firestorm, and we used that backlash on this program to talk about an increasing moral sickness in our culture where pets are being elevated to equal status with human beings. We talked about a study that showed that 40% of people said they would save their pet over the life of a stranger, and in some circles the value of animal life is so equal to human life that given the choice between rescuing a dog or a child from a burning building, you should just flip a coin. You can go back and watch the rest of that episode if you're curious as to why that's probably a sign of moral sickness. But some people were incensed. One commentator wrote, "Just about all your references are biblical, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, except for the speciesism quote. All in all, Gnome outed herself, trying to be a young and just woman then in killing the dog and the goat. They were country people, why not? As a Christian channel, I welcome you to modernize your approach. You call pets property. I believe you're behind the times on that. Just as women were once chattel, animals today can very much be a family member and have accompanied mankind for tens of thousands of years. This breed of dog was not a pit bull, nor a street-fighting dog. He was under the guardianship of Ms. Gnome. What was she trying to tell us? And why are you pitching for her? I believe this story, as much of the public, not media, response has been, shows that Gnome and yourself are completely out of touch with contemporary America. In your world that God created, where we were all once in the Garden of Eden, but were banished because we ate the fruit of knowledge, we're just God's animals too. Catch up, Pastor, and your flock too." Now obviously I'm pitching for Miss Gnome because she's paying me. Duh. But I'm not sure why exactly you're puzzled by the number of citations to Scripture. The Bible is the principal document from which we derive a Christian worldview, which is what I'm arguing from. That's like being dismayed that a constitutional lawyer keeps referring to the Constitution. I mean, doesn't he read any other texts? But the bigger problem here is that his morality seems to be derived from the masses. It's not that women also are created in the image of God and so have inherent intrinsic moral value. We just sort of changed our view of them and so no longer treat them like chattel. And by the same logic, our treatment and view of pets is modernizing and evolving. They're just like us. They're part of the family, so come on, let's get those dogs the right to vote. But I'm out of touch, which would be a devastating critique if I were a 13-year-old girl. But the fact is, listening to modern sensibilities or the largest crowd is not a good way to formulate your morality. I hate to bring up the Bible again, but Jesus says, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." Just following the crowd is biblically not a good idea. And as I pointed out to our friend, it's not a bad thing to be out of touch with contemporary America, because the wisdom and morality of contemporary America has brought us to the killing of over 1 million unborn babies last year, to the insane notion that men can become women, that some men can get pregnant, to the proliferation of drug use, to rampant pornography, to hookup culture, to the celebration of pride, to the championing of obesity, to record divorce rates and out-of-wedlock births, and the horrifying rise of mental illness. To which he responded eloquently this way: "Good, some material I can work with. Let me interstitially debate your points, some with merit, but the thesis fails as it's the author that is imposing archaic logic and doctrine to contemporary social, technological, philosophical, and plain human realities. Wisdom and morality of contemporary America. Who is the purveyor of this wisdom and morality? Did it just materialize out of the blue? No. The wisdom and morality of the US or the Western world is not. Anything that I brought up has an epistemology and evolution through various events, wars, social movements, and a providence towards democracy. Killing of unborn babies, they were unborn. You cannot kill the unborn, Pastor. But I'll forgive your imprecise diction here and give you the benefit of the doubt. You mean abortion of the fetus. Your position is not truly biblical, as in the Bible, untold babies are murdered by God himself. There is no mention of abortion, but of rape, incest, murder, and infanticide. Over the course of the last 60 plus years, with the sexual revolution to help reference your immoral and unwise comments, along with civil rights and women's rights, the right for blacks to vote was also given. That was 1965, the year I was born. Today is 59 years later, and social, philosophical, moral, ethical, and theology and science have all contributed to the subject of women's health. It is theirs, not yours, and abortion. The impact on society, and Pastor, sir, it is not by some mere set of votes that the U.S. had Roe v. Wade, but by history itself that the very combustible subject of abortion has been handled, with dignity and care for the mother above that of the unborn child. That changed the lives of women, hundreds of millions, billions around the world. Your one statistic is pathetic in juxtaposition. I've done enough damage to you today. Let's keep going, though. Oh, lots of anal sex in the Bible, too, and it was not illegal then. So I think this is pretty indicative of where we are in the culture, so let me address it. PNF, you have a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of morality. You're appealing to a confluence of social and political movements as the means of producing moral progress. But the only way that there can be any moral progress is if there's an objective, transcendent moral standard. Societies can progress, move closer to the objective moral standard, or regress, move further from the objective moral standard. But morality doesn't originate from within societies. If it did, then it wouldn't be an objective, transcendent moral standard. In which case, you would have different moral systems, but you wouldn't have better or worse moral systems. Furthermore, you cannot have moral progress if morality is subjective, and morality would necessarily be subjective if it were merely the construct of societies. At best, you'd have a crude pragmatism. But even there, the elevation of animals and pets to equal status of humans fails. Just think of it in evolutionary terms. Those who ascribe to the fur baby mentality are more likely, not less likely, to nurture and rear pets at the expense of their own offspring. How exactly is that evolutionarily beneficial? It doesn't preserve their genetic line. It doesn't even preserve their species. Even if we were to judge this morality in purely evolutionarily pragmatic terms, it still fails. So those who ascribe and adopt that moral system are less fit, not more fit. And that moral shortcoming leads to other moral shortcomings and logical shortcomings. As you said, you cannot kill the unborn, Pastor. What? That statement is so obviously false, it's a little breathtaking. You absolutely can kill the unborn. Even if you want to obfuscate the issue with terms, there is clearly a difference between a living embryo and a dead embryo. There's a difference between a living fetus and a dead fetus. There's a difference between a baby born alive and a stillbirth. And we are more than capable by our actions of making the former the latter. That's not only a biological fact or logically self-evident, it's even expressed in our laws. If you murder a pregnant woman, you can be charged with double homicide. Abortion is the intentional killing of a living entity. There is no way around that fact. But this particular living entity has the exact genetic makeup of Homo sapiens. So if we were to classify it, it is a living human being. You want to hide behind fetus, but fetus is just Latin for offspring. Saying a fetus isn't a baby, it's a fetus, is the exact same thing as saying an infant isn't a baby, it's an infant. Zygote, embryo, fetus, infant, toddler, adolescent, adult. These are terms that we use to describe the various developmental stages of human beings. Fetus is not a category of species. Now, you're correct that the Bible documents all manner of ghastly events, though your theological understanding of it is way off the mark. But that's really neither here nor there. Because unless you can ground your morality in an objective source, all you're really saying is you don't happen to fancy it. And whoop-de-frickin' what you personally like or dislike doesn't matter at all. Now, you can say that my objective transcendent moral source is archaic, but that sort of betrays the entire problem here. Objective truth doesn't change with the times, because if it did, then it would not be objective. It would be subject to the whims and sensibilities of the age. And 2 plus 2 does not cease to be 4 simply because it's archaic mathematics. You must actually demonstrate why elevating pets to co-equal status of humans is an objective moral good. Not only have you not done that, you really haven't even attempted it. You've proffered a bandwagon fallacy and followed that up with what C.S. Lewis called chronological snobbery. We all want progress, but progress means getting nearer to the place you want to be, and if you've taken a wrong turn, then to go forward does not get you any nearer. If you are on the wrong road, progress means doing an about turn and walking back to the right road. And in that case, the man who turns back soonest is the most progressive man. We have all seen this when we do arithmetic. When I have started a sum the wrong way, the sooner I admit this and go back and start over again, the faster I shall get on. There is nothing progressive about being pig-headed and refusing to admit a mistake. And I think, if you look at the present state of the world, it is pretty plain that humanity has been making some big mistakes. We are on the wrong road, and if that is so, we must go back. Going back is the quickest way on. The funny thing is, you've already demonstrated the truth of what C.S. Lewis is driving at in your selective use of history. And by the way, history doesn't handle anything. History is a record of the past. It doesn't have consciousness or agency. Roe v. Wade is a relic of the past. It was overturned in the same manner that it was instituted. A modern court and modern legislatures and modern men are readdressing the handled issue. Progress, right? Get with the times, man. A modern court ruled that there's no constitutional right to abortion, modern legislatures have increased restrictions on abortion, and modern man, by polling, supports restrictions on abortion that were not permissible under Roe. But I somehow doubt that you view that as progress. But if we can both agree that society can progress or regress on particular issues, then the question before us is whether or not modern sensibilities toward pets is a sign of moral progression or regression. You haven't made the case. You haven't even attempted to make the case. And nakedly appealing to the sensibilities of modern man is so foolish you don't even believe it. Oh, lots of anal sex in the Bible too, and it was not illegal then. It's a bit of a weird postscript. Obviously, the Bible mentions sodomy in regards to homosexuality, and there's certainly not lots of it. But if your Bible is highlighted with all those passages, please cite them chapter and verse, and we can walk through them. I'm not damaged, or rattled, or angry. The only thing you've elicited is pity. But I do appreciate you writing in. It's fun. And if you would like to write in, you can also do so. And like, subscribe, tell a friend, buy my latest book, 6 Rounds for the Witching Hour, leave a 5-star review, follow me on the socials, join my author's Facebook page, and I'll see you next time for more Appropriate in the Culture.